The purpose of this project is to document the oral histories of former Forest Haven residents. Forest Haven was an institution created by Congress and operated by the District of Columbia government from 1925 to 1991. It was where DC residents with intellectual disabilities were sent to live lives apart and separate from the community.
My name is Alicia Holliday. My brother is Jerome Walker, who used to live at Forest Haven, and I also advocate for several Forest Haven survivors. I'm a volunteer advocate with the courts because their families no longer have any involvement in their lives. So I have taken over that role. I help make medical decisions for them. I make sure they get the treatment that they deserve. I go to court for them. I do things like that. And I do that for my brother as well. My brother is a survivor of Forest Haven. He'll be 65 years old this year in 2023. He is a wonderful, beautiful person. He's very calm. Everyone who meets him or interacts with him loves him. He is nonverbal, but he is very gentle and he is very sweet. And if you were ever to meet him, you would love him. You would never forget him. He has a great smile too. And he looks younger than I do. You won't forget that either. My brother was around 12. I was about 5 or 6 when he went. And he had been home that whole time. But as he got older, he started exhibiting behaviors and doing things that my mother had trouble managing. And she had trouble when she had to work. She had trouble finding people to watch him. Now, we had extended family who would help from time to time. My mother was an only child, so she only had her mother, some aunts and cousins. But back then, people with disabilities people didn't want to deal with them. People didn't want to look at them. They didn't want to interact with them because it was almost as if they felt it would rub off on them, right? So it was hard for her to get support in the community. We didn't have DDS as we have it now. So she had to find a place where she thought he would be safe and they could take care of him. And so that's when he went to Forest Haven. Was he ever told? I don't know. I don't know if my mother said that to him or spoke those words. I'm sure she tried, but I don't know. And I don't know he would even have understood it if she did. His concepts of the world, even today, are very basic. If he's hungry, if he has to go to the bathroom, if he's tired, right, he can act on those things. But if I were to say, Jerry, I call him Jerry, Jerry, turn on the television, or Jerry, go over there and pick up that book, he wouldn't understand that. So she might have said to him or tried to explain it to him, but I doubt that he would even understand. My brother did not have a good experience at Forest Haven. He was sent there when he was about 12, and they didn't treat him well. I was about 5 or 6 when he went. So we didn't go to visit him immediately. They wouldn't let my younger brother and I go. But when we were able to go, twice a month on Sundays, we would get in my stepfather's car and drive out the Parkway to go see him. I was about between 9 and 11. We would go regularly, maybe a couple of times a month. And we would see him. He would crawl everywhere. They wouldn't use a wheelchair, or rarely, because he has clubbed feet. He was born with cerebral palsy. So he has clubbed feet, and he doesn't speak, and he has learning disabilities. So he has the mindset of maybe a 4-year-old. So instead of putting him in a wheelchair and bringing him to see us, he would crawl everywhere. He had bruises on his knees from crawling. He had water on his knees. And what I mean by that is, imagine a big water bump on your knee, like a I can't even, like a water balloon on your knee because of the crawling, right? He would have bruises sometimes when we visited him. He would have a black eye, sometimes scratches. So he didn't live a good life there. And unfortunately, my mother wasn't in a position to remove him from there immediately. But yeah, I would say he did not live well. It was not a good experience for him. We were happy to see him and he was happy to see us. And my mother would always bring him a treat. Like she always had a jar of applesauce for him. And he would sit there and eat it. So he got to see us and he knows who we are. He knows who I am, even though he's nonverbal, even now. He knows who we are. So we never lost touch and we always stayed with him. So we got to see him quite a bit. What was it like for me to see him? It was great because I knew I would get to see him. And we would bring toys for him to play with. We would bring books and things we would read to him. But to see him in distress was very difficult. It was hard for me. It was hard for my mother. My younger brother didn't understand as much. But because she couldn't take care of him, she didn't really have many options. And even though she protested and tried to get help, back then in the 70s, it was a very different time. Women weren't regarded as much as they are now. So a lot of her protests were brushed away. And they made promises to her they couldn't keep about keeping him safe. But every time we went and he would have a bruise or something, it broke my heart. And I was a kid, I couldn't do anything about it. But I knew it was wrong. So it was painful, it still is. I think because he was a kid, children are resilient, right? So he found a way. But because he's nonverbal, I wouldn't know how he did it. But he made it happen because he survived, because a lot of kids never made it out of Forest Haven, right? So he made it. And I think possibly some of the bruising and the fights he would get in is because he was trying to adapt. I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but my brother never knew how to fight. So if he tried to go against something, somebody probably hit him. It was hard. But again, children are resilient. So we just had to live with the fact that he didn't live with us anymore. And we would see him when we could. We just adapted. We had to make adjustments. But friends of ours from the neighborhood who knew him, they would say, "Where's your brother? How's your brother?" So we would tell them he's okay. But we had to adjust, but it was hard. My mother never really adjusted. She had a hard time with life after that, having to put her son away, knowing he was hurt. She had a hard time with that. And I don't think she ever got over it. I don't think she ever forgave herself. I don't think she ever got over it. The official date where Forest Haven was shut down, where everyone was out, I think it was in the early 80s. I think it was 81, I believe. It was great. My younger brother and I were grown. My mother was living in an apartment and she was very happy that he was coming home or that he was leaving Forest Haven. And she wanted him, of course, to come live with her. But by then, my mother had experienced some health challenges and she wasn't able to care for him. So we had to work with their placement system. And then when they placed him in a group home at the time, which was on Yorktown Road in Northwest DC, we called it Yorktown. One of his lifelong friends, I consider him family, he's no longer with us. His name was Ricky. Arnold Edwards was his name. And when they left Forest Haven, they moved them together. So I think they were probably friends at Forest Haven. Arnold was nonverbal as well. We made sure that we went to visit him on a regular basis and that we became heavily involved in his everyday from that moment forward. So it was great for him to come home. It was great that he would be out of there, and it was great that we would have the ability to have impact on how he lived, because we really didn't have that when he was at Forest Haven. It was great to hear that he was coming home. I was ecstatic. I have a picture of his home, the first home he moved in, and that red Jeep outside was mine. So when he got home, one of the first things I did was throw him in my Jeep and rode him around Rock Creek Park, right? Now, they looked at me like I was crazy, and I didn't have any training on how to care for him, but I wanted him to know that we're here and welcome home. And I drove him around the park, and he laughed and laughed. We had a good day that day. That was a great day. So I was very happy that he was home. A lot of people work hard to make sure that he lives a great life today. He has a great case manager, Thelma Ware. She's been his case manager ever since he left Forest Haven. He has an attorney, Pierre Bergeron, that I work with. He's been his attorney since he left Forest Haven. He has a great team that provides support from RCM of Washington. And We Care DC is his day program. So we work as a team. We meet regularly, we send messages regularly, and we talk about what we can do to make his life a good life. It's important to me that he get out in the community and not go to a day program and sit and move blocks around all day and then come straight home. So we've been able to negotiate and work with them so that he has someone that goes out in the community with him every day and does things that he likes. He can demonstrate with his face whether or not he likes something, right? He never really traveled much, or we never traveled much as kids. And my mother never flew, or she never drove. She was very traditional in that way. So when he came home, her wild and crazy daughter, only daughter, was down to take him out and let him see the world. So I've taken him to plays, I've taken him to shows, he's been to New York, he's been to Times Square, he's been to Vegas, he's been to Miami, he's been a lot of places. And his care team has helped make that happen. I couldn't do it by myself because he has certain needs that I can't meet. So they would all help send a licensed and skilled caregiver with us on these trips. Needless to say, he had a really happy caregiver for a long time. He's no longer with the company, but we worked as a team to make sure that he gets out and about and he does things, and that he doesn't just sit around and do nothing and become stagnant. And he also he used to get physical therapy and things like that. But because his feet are clubbed, I don't know if you know what clubbed feet are, but his feet are clubbed, so they don't sit straight like that. They're clubbed. So this is the part of the foot that contacts the ground, right, near the ankle. And even though he has corrective orthotics and things like that, as soon as they take them off, it's back. So his mobility has always been a challenge. But with the invention of nice portable chairs and things like that, we can really get him out. I actually keep a portable, foldable wheelchair in my house. So whenever we go, I'm like, come on, Jerry, let's go. He knows he's ready to go. He jumps right in the chair and he knows we out. We going somewhere. So we work hard to give him a good life, but he's getting older now and it's getting a little more difficult to move him around, right? And he gets tired. So I don't know what that's going to look like for the trip so much. I don't think I'll ever put him on a plane again because that was an adventure. But we're still going to keep him out in the community and keep him active as much as we can for as long as we can. We took him to Orlando, to Universal Studios, and we took him to the beach. And whenever we go to the beach, we find a place that has beach wheelchairs. Have you ever seen one? So certain beaches have beach wheelchairs. You can put them in there, and you can put them in the roll on the sand and in the water. He likes the water. We take him to Six Flags or Great Wolf Lodge. He loves the big wave pool, right? And we'll put him in a tube and let him bounce around in there, but we have to be with him. But he loves it. He loves the motion. He loves the noise. We took him to Universal Studios, and a lot of rides are accessible. Some of them aren't. So we went to Harry Potter, and we asked, is Harry Potter accessible? Can he get on? Oh, sure. Can he transfer? Yes. Okay. So it's an indoor ride. We thought, oh, great. This will be a great ride. It was an indoor roller coaster in the dark, upside down, crazy, all kinds of stuff, dragons coming at you. It is the craziest ride I've ever been on. They take a picture of you on the ride. My husband was on it. His eyes are closed, you know. I'm holding Jerry like this because I'm afraid he's going to fall out. And I'm just like, oh my God. He was just looking, and then when he got out, you know, he wasn't laughing. He wasn't happy. He wasn't happy. He was just like, you know, his eyes, he was just like, But it was the craziest thing. But we've had some good times, and I can't make up for what happened in the past, but I can make sure he has a good life. And he has. And he does. I dare to say, we aren't as evolved. We weren't as evolved. Everything that was out that was not quote unquote normal back then was shunned and stigmatized. I mean, people think it's bad now. They had no idea. They have no idea the things that were not even spoken of back then. You know, you didn't, if you told you had a disabled brother, they didn't know. And the word disabled wasn't even used. It was the R word, which I will not use, but they used to use the R word, right? Or worse. So, yeah, I've seen a lot of things change over the years, and I'm happy that they have changed. And if you drove around the city and looked at some of the former group homes, you'll notice they're isolated. Most of them are single family homes. They're in the woods, or they're off and apart from the rest of the community. And you can still tell that they're being used because you see the vans out front or in the driveway. So by bridges, you know, places where that were not on the beaten path, right? Because people were embarrassed and ashamed. So fortunately, people who had good hearts would lease their homes to let them become group homes because they were all single level and things like that. But yeah, the community was definitely not ready. And for years, you know, you take them out, people staring and they're making fun. And yeah, it's been a challenge. But things today are much more evolved. We've evolved a lot as people do, and as society does. So now when you see someone out who has a disability, it's not as much of a problem. It's like, okay, they're in a wheelchair, okay, they look different, okay, you know, but it was bad in the 80s, 70s, it was bad. It was really bad. Being an advocate is important because I remember Forest Haven, when we would go there, a lot of kids were there, and they would wave and say hi, you know, almost as if they thought we were coming to see them. So I remember that. And I also remember going to nursing homes. My mother got sick, and people were like, hi, right? Because they weren't getting any visitors. They weren't getting any interaction. And people weren't looking out for their best interests, right? So being an advocate is important to me, because I know that if you are ignored and people who are providing care for you who don't have your best interest at heart know that nobody cares, then they won't care, right? So I want to make sure that people like my brother, his friends, and others have someone who is vested in them and who's going to make sure that their money is spent properly. They get the medical care that they need. they get interaction, if they need physical therapy, if they need any type of rehab, if they need surgery, that they'll get it and they'll get it in a timely manner, just like anybody else would. I think people with disabilities are entitled to the same rights as everyone else, and advocacy makes that happen. While Forest Haven was a place that was designed to help people with disabilities, there was not enough oversight to protect the people who lived there. And the same mindset is happening with some of these companies who provide care for people with disabilities. And it's important that we continue to have advocates and people to give oversight to the providers of care to people who can't care for themselves, so that they can have the life that they deserve. No one asked to be born with a disability, but because you're born with a disability, you shouldn't be treated any less of a person. You're still a human. You're still entitled to live. You're still entitled to enjoy life. And I would hope that there would never be another place in the Washington area or anywhere else. Unfortunately, I know there's still some that exist, but I would hope that they wouldn't ever try to warehouse people who are different from other people again.